Emma always had the better grades, my mother said, beaming at my twin sister across the dinner table. She's going to be a brilliant surgeon, just like her father. I pushed my food around my plate, trying to ignore the familiar ache in my chest. Even at our 25th birthday dinner, nothing had changed. Emma was still the golden child, the one who followed the perfect path they'd laid out. And I was still Olivia, the disappointment. "What about you, Olivia?" Aunt Claire asked, probably trying to be kind. "Still doing that business thing." "Investment banking," I corrected quietly. "I'm up for promotion to vice president at Goldman next month." "Oh," my mother's smile dimmed slightly. "Well, that's nice. But it's not quite the same as saving lives, is it?" Emma at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Mom, did you hear Emma got accepted to Johns Hopkins for her fellowship?" Dad interrupted, his chest puffing with pride. "Top program in the country." I'd heard, just like I'd heard about every single one of Emma's achievements since we were children. How she was walking first, talking first, reading first, though actually, I'd done all those things before her. But somehow, in my parents' retelling, Emma always came first. Looking at us now, you'd never know we were identical twins, same dark hair, same green eyes, same features. But Emma wore scrubs and a white coat like battle armor, while I chose tailored suits and stilettos. Emma saved lives in the operating room, while I made millions in boardrooms. Both successful, but in my family's eyes, only one path had value. "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, "I have some news too." "Of course, dear," my mother said absently, still gazing at Emma. "What is it?" "I've been approached about starting my own investment firm. Private equity, focusing on healthcare technology." That got their attention, especially my father's. As chief of surgery at Boston General, he understood the value of medical technology investments. "Your own firm?" Emma asked, genuinely interested. "That's incredible, Liv." "It's very risky," my mother cut in. "Surely you'd be better off staying in your safe job at Goldman." I bit back a laugh. Safe. There was nothing safe about the 60-hour weeks, the cutthroat deals, the constant pressure to perform. But of course that wasn't real work in their eyes. Not like Emma's noble profession. "I've already raised initial capital," I continued. $300 million in commitments." My father choked on his wine. $300 million? "Several of my clients are backing me. They trust my track record." I took a sip of water, enjoying their shocked expressions. "The firm launches next month. Nova Capital Partners." But that's so much responsibility," my mother sputtered. "What if you fail?" "Then I fail." I shrugged. "But I won't." Emma reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I think it's amazing, Liv. You've always been the brave one." Had I wondered, or had I just been the one with something to prove? The rest of dinner passed in a blur of Emma's accomplishments and my mother's thinly veiled concerns about my risky career move. Dad kept giving me thoughtful looks, probably calculating the potential returns on healthcare technology investments. Later, as we waited for valet to bring our cars, Emma pulled me aside. "I'm sorry about Mom and Dad," she said softly. "You know how they are." I did know, had known since we were 5, and Emma announced she wanted to be a doctor like Daddy. I'd said I wanted to be a businesswoman like our Uncle James, and my mother had actually cried. "It's fine," I said. "I'm used to it." "No, it's not fine." Emma grabbed my arm. "You're doing amazing things, Liv. Things I could never do. They should be proud of you too." I looked at my twin, my other half, the person who shared my DNA but somehow got all our parents' love. It wasn't her fault. She just fit their mold better. "Thanks, Em." I hugged her quickly. "Good luck at Johns Hopkins." "Good luck with Nova Capital," she replied. "Though I doubt you need luck." If only I'd known then how prophetic those words would be. 1 month later, I sat in my new office on the 40th floor of a gleaming downtown tower, watching the sun rise over Boston Harbor. Nova Capital Partners logo, my logo, gleamed on the wall behind my desk. My team of analysts was already at their desks, preparing for our first major deal. "Ms. Bennett?" My assistant Sarah poked her head in. "The board of Meditech is ready for your call." Meditech was our first major target, a promising medical device company with revolutionary technology but poor management. Their stock had been underperforming for years, making them ripe for acquisition. "Put them through," I said, straightening my jacket. The call went exactly as planned. Meditech's board was desperate for capital, and their CEO was looking to retire. By the end of the hour, we had a preliminary agreement for Nova to acquire a controlling interest. Excellent work, everyone, I told my team afterward. Due diligence starts tomorrow. I want every detail of their operation analyzed. That's when Sarah appeared again, looking uncomfortable. Ms. Bennett, your father's here. I froze. Dad never visited me at work, not at Goldman, and certainly not here. Send him in. He entered cautiously, looking out of place in his surgical scrubs. Nice office, he said, glancing around. Very impressive. Thanks, I gestured to a chair. What brings you here, Dad? He sat down heavily, and I noticed for the first time how tired he looked. How old? We need to talk, he said. About Boston General. My stomach tightened. Boston General was where both my parents worked, where Emma was supposed to do her fellowship. The hospital had been part of our family's life for decades. What about it? We're in trouble. He ran a hand through his graying hair. Serious trouble. The hospital's been mismanaged for years. We're facing bankruptcy. I leaned back in my chair, pieces clicking into place. The hospital's declining reputation, the outdated equipment, the loss of key staff to private hospitals. How bad? Bad enough that we're looking for buyers. He met my eyes. Your mother doesn't know yet. Neither does Emma, but we need someone to come in, someone who understands both healthcare and finance. I felt a laugh bubbling up. And he thought of me. The disappointment? The one taking unnecessary risks? He flinched. Olivia. No, I stood up, anger finally breaking through years of careful control. For 25 years, you and Mom made it clear that my choices weren't good enough. That Emma was the one doing meaningful work while I just played with money. And now you want my help. Please, he said quietly, the hospital will close without intervention. Thousands will lose their jobs. Emma's fellowship, your mother's research, all of it gone. I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. What exactly are you asking for? Nova Capital has the expertise and resources to save Boston General. Turn it around, make it profitable again. He paused. I'm asking you to help save our family's legacy. The irony was almost too perfect. The daughter they dismissed now held their future in her hands. I'll have my team look into it, I said finally. But Dad, if we do this, it's business, not family. He nodded, standing to leave. At the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, Olivia, I was wrong. What you've built here, it's extraordinary. After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences, about twin sisters who took different paths, and parents who could only see value in one of them. Sarah, I called. Get me everything you can on Boston General Hospital. Financial records, management structure, debt obligations, everything. Starting due diligence already, she asked. I smiled grimly. Oh yes, this is going to be very interesting. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Boston General was bleeding money from every department, crushed under decades of mismanagement and outdated systems. Their debt was staggering, their equipment lease payments were crippling, and their administrative costs were nearly double the industry standard. It's a mess, my CFO Mark concluded, closing his laptop. But there's potential. The location is prime, the reputation is still strong despite recent issues, and their research department has several promising projects. I studied the financial models spread across my desk. How much would it take to turn it around? $200 million minimum, plus another 100 for modernization and equipment upgrades. He hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this? It would be easier to let it fail and buy the assets in bankruptcy. Easier, yes, and probably smarter from a purely business perspective. But something in me couldn't let Boston General die. Not like that. Schedule a meeting with the board, I said, and get me detailed reports on every department head. The meeting was set for Friday morning. I arrived early, watching the hospital board members file into the conference room. My father sat at the far end, looking smaller than I remembered. These past weeks had aged him. Thank you all for coming, I began, standing at the head of the table. I've reviewed Boston General's situation carefully, and I have a proposal. I laid out the plan. Nova Capital would acquire the hospital, restructure its debt, and implement comprehensive modernization. But there were conditions. First, The entire board will resign, effective immediately. The hospital needs fresh leadership, not the same people who created this crisis. Murmurs of protest rippled through the room. I held up a hand. Second, all department heads will be evaluated. Those who can adapt to the new systems will stay. Those who can't will be replaced. My father's face was ashen. His position as chief of surgery would be among those evaluated. Third, we'll implement complete modernization. Equipment, systems, procedures. Everything will be brought up to current standards. I clicked to the next slide, showing the financial terms. The room fell silent as they absorbed the numbers. This is your best option, I concluded. Without intervention, Boston General will be bankrupt within 6 months. My offer expires at noon on Monday. And if we refuse? One board member asked. Then I'll wait until bankruptcy, buy the assets for pennies on the dollar, and rebuild without any of you involved. They knew I meant it. More importantly, they knew I could do it. The board voted 30 minutes later. My offer was accepted unanimously. As people filed out, my father approached my chair. Olivia. I have another meeting. I cut him off. Any questions about the transition can go through my team. He nodded slowly, understanding the message. This wasn't personal, it was business. That evening my mother called. She'd heard about the deal. How could you? She demanded. Your father built that hospital's surgery department. And now I'm saving it, I replied calmly, unless you prefer bankruptcy. But his position will be evaluated like everyone else's. If he meets the new standards, he'll stay. She was quiet for a moment. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Finally having power over us? The accusation stung, but I kept my voice steady. No, Mom. I'm doing my job. The same job you and Dad always dismissed as meaningless. After she hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked to the window of my penthouse apartment. The city lights sparkled below, and somewhere out there, my family was realizing that their golden child couldn't save them. Only the daughter they'd underestimated could do that. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Can we talk? We met at our favorite coffee shop, the one we'd studied in during college. Emma looked tired, her surgeon's confidence dimmed by worry. They're saying you're going to fire Dad, she said without preamble. If he can't adapt to the new systems, yes. She stirred her coffee absently. Mom's devastated. She keeps saying you're doing this for revenge. What do you think? Emma looked up, her green eyes. So like mine, searching my face. I think you're doing what needs to be done. What none of us had the courage to do. I felt tears threatening. After all these years, my twin still knew me best. The hospital's dying, has been for years, but everyone was too scared to admit it. If I don't make these changes, there won't be anything left to save. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I know, and for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I always have been. The next few months were intense. We replaced half the board, modernized every department, and implemented new management systems. Some staff resigned in protest. Others embraced the changes enthusiastically. My father surprised everyone by diving into the new procedures with determination. He took courses in modern surgical techniques, learned the new equipment systems, and even volunteered to help train other surgeons. I was wrong, he told me one evening, stopping by my office. About a lot of things, but especially about you. I looked up from my computer. Dad. No, let me finish. He sat down heavily. I spent so many years pushing Emma to follow in my footsteps that I never saw what you were building. Never appreciated your gifts. It's business, I said, falling back on my usual defense. No, he smiled sably. It's more than that. You're not just making money, Olivia. You're building something lasting, something that will help people in ways I never could. For the first time in years, I let myself really look at my father. The gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes, the humility that had replaced his old certainty. I'm keeping you on, I said quietly. Your evaluation scores were excellent. His eyes widened. Even with the new systems, you adapted better than most. The surgery department needs experienced leadership, someone who understands both the old ways and the new. He stood up, emotion making his movements stiff. Thank you. Don't thank me, you earned it. After he left, I sat thinking about change, how it could break us or remake us, depending on how we faced it. 6 months after the acquisition, Boston General was transformed. The new equipment and systems had slashed costs while improving care. Staff morale was up, patient satisfaction scores were climbing, and our research department had secured several major grants. Emma got her fellowship position, not because of family connections, but because she earned it. Mom gradually stopped comparing us, learning to appreciate our different strengths. 1 year to the day after I'd walked into that board meeting, I hosted a celebration at the hospital. Staff, board members, and family gathered to mark our success. A toast, Emma announced, raising her glass. To my sister, who saw what we couldn't see and had the courage to change it. I looked around the room, at my father in his new surgical gear, at my mother actually smiling at me with pride, at the staff who had weathered the changes and emerged stronger. No, I said, raising my own glass. To family, both the one we're born with and the one we build. Later that night, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports. The hospital's turnaround was even better than projected. Nova Capital's investment would pay off handsomely, proving that doing good could also be good business. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Dinner tomorrow? Just us twins. I smiled, remembering all those childhood dinners where she'd been the star and I'd been the afterthought. How far we'd come since then. Definitely, I replied. But this time I'm buying. The sun set over Boston Harbor, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In my hand, I held 2 photographs, one of Emma and me as children, identical in every way, and one taken at today's celebration, showing 2 very different women who had finally found their own paths. Different paths, but no longer unequal. No longer a competition with one winner and one loser. Just 2 sisters who had learned that success comes in many forms, and family, real family, means celebrating each other's strengths. My assistant popped her head in. Ms. Bennett, the new pediatric wing plans are ready for your review. I set down the photographs and turned to my computer. There was still work to do, a legacy to build. But now I was building it on my own terms, with my family's support rather than their judgment. And that was worth more than any signature on any deal.